it's Rianne. 3 months ago, I ran out of excuses and I had to do it. I had to learn how to sew. But I was also really intimidated by sewing because in my mind, I had built it up to be this thing where you had to be super perfectionistic and you had to learn all of these really technical, crazy things. So I'd start thinking about those types of things and I would just be like, no, that's okay, I'm gonna stop. So if that sounds anything like you, I'm here to tell you it doesn't have to be that way. I bought a sewing machine and actually in the 48 hours after I placed my order, I was like, am I gonna cancel the sewing machine? What am I doing buying a sewing machine? Why did I buy a sewing machine? But don't worry, it is absolutely possible to teach yourself how to sew. I've learned a lot along the way and I'm here to tell you how to do it. My first piece of advice is to buy a standard machine from a big company, a machine from Brother or maybe Singer. I personally will have the exact machine that I bought in the information bar below. Number one, the price point is incredibly affordable. And number two, there are tons of tutorials online if you buy a standard beginner machine from a big brand. I myself have found so many helpful tutorials just by Googling the name of my sewing machine. The other thing that's great about it is because my machine is a Singer, even if I can't find a tutorial for what I'm looking for my exact machine, I can find one for a different Singer machine and it'll be a very similar process. There are so many great tutorials on YouTube, of course, and also on so many sewing websites that I really haven't felt like I really needed to buy a specific sewing course. I had sort of thought that that was what I was going to do in the beginning, but because I've been able to learn so much on YouTube, it really hasn't been something that I feel like I have to do at this point. And because I was watching so many sewing tutorials on YouTube, I now get propagated different sewing tutorials, like for example, how to sew a blind hem. And I'll just watch that and learn how to do it, even if I don't need to know how to do it today. And then I can think about how I might want to incorporate that into another project that I might be doing down the line. So I'm gonna be really honest with you right now. When I first set up my machine, I almost threw in the towel. I was almost like, I'm returning this machine tomorrow. I hate this. And the best advice that I can give you is just to hang in there. When I first got my machine and I took it out of the box, I remembered that I live in the Netherlands now and I could not use any of the instruction manual that came in the box, but I was able to find a really great playlist, which I'll have linked in the information bar below. And it's from sewingmastery.com's YouTube channel. And they basically show you out of the box everything you need to know about the machine and how to set it up. So when you're setting up your machine, there's a few things that you want in order to get started. Number one, you want to source some fabric that is going to be easy to work with. I highly recommend a pretty loose cotton that doesn't have any stretch to it whatsoever. I highly recommend going to the thrift store for this and picking up like some old sheets, for example, just because you'll be able to get a lot of fabric without spending a lot of money on it. You definitely want to make sure that you keep your expectations realistic. The first few things that you make are going to be disgusting. Like, they're just not gonna be cute. And that's part of the process. You have to be willing to know that. Although the first thing that I made was an apron and it actually is pretty cute. It's definitely wearable and it's pretty cute, but if I was gonna make that apron today, I'd be making it very differently. Once you get some fabric and you get some thread, I highly recommend using name brand thread because it won't sort of like shed into your machine. I made that mistake. It's time to start setting up your machine. So basically dedicate a pretty good amount of time, I would say 4 to 6 hours, setting up your machine as an absolute beginner. And you're going to just basically have a trial and error fest. You're going to want to get a pretty good idea of all of these basic things before you start making clothes. You're basically working out the kinks. So something that happened to me, for example, is I was sewing and all the bottom was coming out super loopy and knotted and I couldn't figure out why. And so I just kind of Googled and tested until I found what the problem was and I was able to figure it out. It was not a very fun process, I'm not going to lie to you, but once you figure it out, you feel so accomplished. And that in itself is a reward, isn't it? So once you get all of that down, you're ready to start working on your first project. And I would say that probably won't take more than 3 days. So you can really start working on your first project pretty soon after you get your machine. So some tips for your first project are definitely to source some fabric inexpensively, but that is still easy to work with fabric. You definitely want to stay away from things like silk, something like a super stretchy spandex. I made that mistake. If you use a piece of fabric that's 100% cotton, you are golden. Especially when you're first starting out, when you are sewing on your project, you want to make sure that you have a little bit of extra fabric nearby. and you want to do a test stitch on a piece of fabric that is not part of your project. After a while, you probably won't have to do this anymore because you'll kind of have the workflow down, you'll know to check everything before you do it. But at the beginning, I think it's definitely helpful so you don't ruin your project as you're working on it. Full disclosure, I myself have a long way to go when it comes to learning how to sew, but I feel like the more projects I make, every single time I'm learning something new. And building your repertoire as you go is really fun. So whenever I get stuck, I just Google how to do it and I can usually figure it out. I hope you found this video encouraging. It's absolutely possible to teach yourself how to sew, and nobody told me how addicting it is to make your own clothes. Like, all I want to do is make my own clothes now. I'm not mad about it. If you'd like to come along for more beauty and fashion, and especially more sewing escapades, you can definitely subscribe to this channel, and you can follow me on Instagram. It's @riannstar, and I will talk to you very soon. Bye!